Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is one of my rare film reviews, so I've only done a few of these because I want to concentrate more on books and random other things, I guess. But I do want to do these occasional film reviews, and I've just seen a film, literally just turned it off, and I've got this urge to talk about it because it's blown me away. It was absolutely amazing, and I urge you to see this film. I'm going to try and tell you why I think it's so good without spoiling it. So the less you know about the plot, the better. And if I talk about stylistically why it works so well and why it's really interesting and why it's gripping and powerful and thrilling and really tense towards the third act and during the third act, then clearly there's a risk of me spoiling it. So I'm going to try and do this surreptitiously without spoiling it. So it's Last Night in Soho. Last Night in Soho came out at the end of last year, directed by Edgar Wright, who I think is a phenomenal director. So he clearly started his career doing the series Spaced, which kind of made Simon Pegg famous. And then he did Shaun of the Dead, which, if you haven't seen Shaun of the Dead, it's a masterpiece. And then I think he did Scott Pilgrim and versus the World, I think. And then he did the other two films in the trilogy, the Cornetto trilogy, Hot Fuzz and The World's End. And then he did Baby Driver, which I think is a fantastic film. And now he's done this. I haven't looked this up, so I'm not sure if I've left something out. He may have done something else. He was going to do Ant-Man for a bit, but that went off, and he did some, and then someone else did it. But anyway, Last Night in Soho, a thriller with a kind of a bit of a magical realism kind of beginning, and a sense of it feels like it's going to become a ghost story, and there is an element of sort of haunting and the ghost story in this, but it ends up being a lot more than that. Thomasin McKenzie, I think her name is, Thomasin McKenzie plays a student who's just got the chance to start studying in London, in Soho, at this prestigious fashion college. And I think it might be the London College of Art, I'm not sure. But she's doing this fashion course. She wants to be a fashion designer. And it's, she's very excited about it at the beginning. Right at the beginning, you learn that she's got this ability that somehow connects her to the dead through a mirror image. And this obviously plays out through the film. And she, after starting this course, she meets these horrible people who are just sort of kind of bullying her in a way, and certainly being quite nasty to her. So she realises she has to move out of halls and get her own place. So she gets her own place, and that's when the plot properly kicks in, and she's basically haunted by the ghosts of the 60s. So she's got this sort of portal into the 60s, and basically the film explores how badly women were exploited by the powerful businessmen in Soho in the 60s, and how you had these pimp characters that were basically turning innocent women into prostitutes and mistreating them, treating them like dirt, dehumanizing them, and that is explored really well in the film, and some of that's really uncomfortable to watch. And it's quite interesting because I think nowadays the male gaze is a big part of the kind of cultural discussion about treatment of women in general in entertainment and in real life and all that sort of stuff. So it's quite a pertinent and relevant film in that sense as well, and it's played out really well. And there's this sort of mirror character, without saying too much, that's played by Anya Taylor-Joy, which is done really well, and basically this kind of haunting gets worse and worse and worse, and the situation gets worse, and she becomes obsessed by this mirror image character that she keeps seeing, and she discovers more about her life, and then it all comes to a head at the end. and it's so good. It's so good. I thought it was going to be good. I couldn't wait to watch it, and I wanted to see it in the cinema. I missed it in the cinema, and now I've got a chance to see it. So we watched it as soon as we could, and it's just fantastic. The directing is so thrilling. It's so on edge. It's got really clever stuff in it that pulls you in. I think there's a little bit of a sort of Sam Raimi kind of element to what Edgar Wright does, but there's a Edgar Wright thing. I mean, he's got his own distinctive style, I think, and that was kind of played out even well before he was doing films, when he was doing Space. That sort of quick editing thing, and the way he uses music in films is really interesting. Obviously, famously, Baby Driver's score which was like lots of rock songs, was a part of the narrative in Baby Driver. And in this one, it's definitely a huge part of the atmosphere, but it's also, again, it plays into the narrative a lot, and a lot of the scenes action are being supported by the music in the scene. So that's really interesting. And the characters are beautifully cast, so there's a real sense of reality with these characters that are butting heads, or they're kind of getting embroiled in this complicated plot that's developing through the film. And there's lots of surprises. There's a really cool performance from Diana Rigg, and I think it was her last performance, I'm not sure. There is actually a little tribute at the beginning of the credits saying for Diana. But yeah, her performance is amazing. But all of the performances are really good. And it just sort of builds up this tension so well, and it gets quite trippy and psychedelic towards the end. And then when you really know what was actually happening and what kind of situation the main character's in, it's so thrilling, and it's got a fantastic ending. And yeah, I mean, I just think you should all go see it if you think this sounds interesting. I'm desperately trying not to tell you what happens. It's really good, and I think I did this last time when I did a review. I think the last film review I did was Nobody, and I said I don't want to tell you what happens. Ultimately, films are better if you don't know what's going to happen, right? So it is one of the issues about doing a film review that's worth watching. But yeah, I really do recommend this film. The atmosphere is brilliant. The acting is brilliant. The direction's brilliant. It's quite unusual, I think, and the way it builds up is so clever and really pulls you in. And Edgar Wright is such an interesting director, I think. But yeah, I think that was all I needed to say, really. So, Last Night in Soho, go and watch it, and see a little bit of 60s London, and how scary it would have been for women, and how trapped they could be if they go in there to try and make a success of themselves, and it all goes a little bit dark. Yeah, Last Night in Soho. Thanks a lot. Wait.